Hari Om. Let's start with the prayer. Om Samasta Jana Kalyane Niratam Karunamayam Namami Chinmayam Devam Sadgurum Brahma Vidvaram Vasudeva Sutam Devam Kamsachanura Devaki Paramanandam Krishnam Vande Jagadgurum Tvameva Mata Cha Pita Tvameva Tvameva Bandhuscha Sakha Tvameva Tvameva Vidya Dravidam Tvameva Tvameva Sarvam Amadeva Deva Tvameva Sarvam Gurudeva Deva. Hari Om. So we are discussing the Karma Yoga and the sloka of Bhagavad Gita. Karmani eva adhikaraste ma paleshu kadachana. Mentioned, this is one of the fundamental laws of action and the results that Krishna provides. I have only choice in performing an action as a human being, and the results will be given by that. This is where the intellect comes into picture in selecting the choice. Whereas in the case of animals and all that, they do not have much choice. There is no will to perform an action. That's why the free will and destiny differs in this. For the human being, we have both the destiny and free will playing at a role. The destiny is the one that brought the situation that is right now there for me to act. That's because of my past actions. And that's what is it's a result of all the past actions is what I have. So what I have is destiny, and what I do with what I have is my free will. And free will is I am free to choose. Therefore, I had to choose what is the appropriate action, and that's why there has to be guidance in terms of what is appropriate. And for that only, education is important. Education by the parents first, and by the society, as well as by the Vedas also. We'll come back to this a little bit more, but here we need to understand also in this Karmani eva adhikaraste, which is I had to offer to, because yajñartham karma anyatra karma bandhanaha. It says yajñartham means for the sake of the Lord. So I need to know who is the Lord, and why should I and how should I offer it to the Lord. We already discussed in the past on the previous talks, the Lord is nothing but the whole universe itself. He himself became many. So when he is everywhere, how can I invoke him? I can invoke him since he is everywhere. Every form is his form. So I can invoke him in any form, knowing that it's only representation of the form. Form is not that, but form is also that also. Therefore, I can represent and respect and invoke the presence of the Lord in that form for my puja or for my devotion. And that's what is essentially all so-called Vigraha Radhana is. We do not do any Vigraha Radhana. Nobody worships an idol. What we worship is only the ideal represented by any form. So someone criticizing, oh, Hindus worship all animals, monkeys and all that, cows, holy cow, all these things. To say when we could worship even the cow also, because we see Lord is everywhere. Every religion says he is all-pervading. Therefore he is also in the cow also. But all-pervading Lord cannot be invoked by any conceptualization, just as when we salute a piece of cloth with the stars or stripe or with tricolors, we are saluting not the piece of cloth with colors, but we are saluting a nation that stands for it. Therefore, very symbolism is required for the mind to concentrate, because the mind has to need to have a focus to concentrate. And Krishna says, when you offer bhakti, bhakti is involved with an attitude of offering to the Lord, because it's a surrenderance or recognition that the Lord is everywhere and everything is because of the Lord only, because the whole universe is not, everything is not, is Him. So that includes even the body, mind and intellect also. So when I take the body as mine, I am only claiming what doesn't belong to me as mine, unless I understand clearly, properly. So when I go to a temple or church and then pray to the Lord, I am assuming the Lord is only in the temple or in the church. And when I perform, I say, okay, I do puja or prayers in the church, and when I come out of it, Lord is no more. So that Lord also, I have reduced it as a temporal condition. Because when I'm dealing with my wife, I'm a husband. When I'm dealing with the boss, I am an employee. When I'm dealing with a friend, I'm a friend. So each are temporal. So when I'm dealing with a daughter, I'm a father. So these roles that I am playing are temporal, because in that situation I am playing the role of a father or an employee, a husband or a wife, and so on and so forth. When I moved out of the role is different. But when I go to a temple also, I am praying the Lord, I am a devotee, and the Lord is the devotion, the deity, and I become only a devotee inside the temple, because I think the Lord is only inside the temple. Once I come out of it, then I am acting as though there is no Lord out there. That means I have not understood what exactly the Lord means. Lord is only, temple is only a practice to practice how one should be devoted. But once I come out of the temple or a church, I have to recognize the Lord is everywhere too. So I cannot be right now a devotion is also, devotee-deity relationship is also seem to be temporal, just like husband and wife, or husband or an individual and the employee or a friend, all are temporal relationships. But this is lack of understanding. Lord, I have to understand is all religion says He is omnipresent, He is everywhere. So I cannot get but be devotee all the time. So every action involves two things. One is I am acting in the setup. So when I am performing an action in the job, I am an employee and that has to be done. That is immediate temporal relationship. But there is a more fundamental relationship, because I have to also recognize, because of this knowledge, that Lord is everywhere, including in the office also. So therefore, I cannot be just a devotee inside the temple. I have to be devotee, a full-time devotee. The devotee-deity relationship cannot be a temporal. Anywhere I go, the Lord is there. So anywhere I go, I have to be devotee all the time. So every action I perform, again I perform into the totality, including whether office, but office is part of the totality also. So the totality is involved as well as the locality is also involved. So I should be a devotee all the time. So deity-devotee relationship cannot be temporal. It is permanent, fundamental relationship. All other relations are temporal, but this is temporal because I cannot but be with Him all the time. This recognition also is a knowledge. If I understand it, then every action has to be a devoted action, because the Lord is also there. So when I perform an action, I have to be a devotee with respect to deity, the devotee relationship. Also I have to be a local relationship as a husband with respect to wife, and a wife with respect to the husband, a father with respect to the son or a daughter, or a son with respect to my father and the parents. All other relationships are also there. So I have two relationships in every setup. One is I am an employee, also I am a devotee. So how do I do this? I had to satisfy both, and the only way is devotee plus an employee becomes a devoted employee. So devotee plus husband becomes a devoted husband, a devoted wife, devoted son, devoted father. So devotion involves therefore recognition of the Lord everywhere. So every action becomes a devoted action. Devoted action means it has to be a perfect action to the best that I can do. Whatever my capacities are, physically, mentally, intellectually, I have to do my part, my best, and that becomes a devoted action, because that action is the best action that I can, and the Lord in me will be satisfied. Lord outside is also satisfied. So someone asks, how do you know Lord is satisfied? Before you ask the Lord whether the Lord is satisfied or not, are you satisfied with your action? No, I am not. If you yourself are not satisfied, how do you expect the Lord to be satisfied? Therefore, every action that you perform, you should be satisfied. Then the Lord in you will be automatically satisfied. That is the secret of the action with a devotion. So the bhakti comes automatically as a part of karma yoga, because the Ishvara is involved, and Ishvara arpita buddhi, that means offering the action to the results is there. Offering means what? It's not necessarily a prayer. Action itself becomes a prayer when it becomes a devoted action. Hence Krishna says, Yat karoshi yadashnasi yat juhoshi dadasi yadu yat tapasyasi kaunteya tat kurushva madarpanam. Whatever you do, yat karoshi, whatever you do, and whatever you eat, whatever yajna, whatever thing, performance you do, offer it to me. I am happy to satisfy. You can offer it to me in the sanctum sanctorium of the temple, but when you are outside, you offer it to me because I am there also. Temple is only a training to recognize the presence of the Lord. That's why Bhagavan Ramana Maharshi says, Jagada Ishadihi Yukta Sevanam Ashtamurti Aiva Pujanam. Says, when I perform an action, Jagat Ishadihi, that means take the whole world itself is the Lord and perform the action. That means every action has to be devotion action. That means I am performing my best in every action that I can do. And the second thing is, the action has to be dharmic action, because I am offering to the Lord. So it has to be rightful action. And that also is part of the involvement. Now we go a little bit, in the last talk we talked about the karmani eva adhikaraste, where we can only act in the present. So we are bringing a time concept. We want to analyze what exactly is the time and space also a little bit, although this is a part of the pramana that we have discussed. And here I am bringing it so that we also nail that one or understand clearly what is the space, time, because when I say I consider myself, I am this body, mind and intellect, I have limitations, and these limitations called desa, kala, vastu, parichinnatvam. That means limited by desha. This means spatially limited. I am spatially limited, and kala, I am time-wise limited. Says I don't have enough time. I have to do this. I have to do this. I have a big list of things. But whatever you do, prioritize it. That's a part of the becoming an efficient manager also. You have to be efficient, prioritized, and what is the right thing to do. And if you step it, then the action itself becomes a beautiful. And whatever you do, the Lord will be pleased, and in the process you are happy. There are a lot of things beyond your control, leave it to Him. There is a prayer of serenity. Says that's beautiful prayer. He says, whatever that I can have a control, I should be able to contribute, and whatever I cannot control, I should leave it, and I should have proper wisdom to know which I can control and which I cannot control. And that knowledge is essential in my transactional world. All that is important. Now let me analyze a little bit. What exactly is the space and time? Do we perceive space and time? Space we cannot really perceive, although some of the darshanikas, that means the philosophers, say that when I am seeing the world, this is also true in terms of Mimamsa also. The Purva-Mimamsa views, according to them, say when I perceive an object, I am perceiving an object located in space, and also I am perceiving now, therefore the time is involved. But that's not really true. What I can perceive, the senses cannot perceive space. What it can perceive is points in space. So space is defined as gap between two simultaneous observation of the points. So here be careful. When I have observing 2 points simultaneously, not 1 point, 2 points simultaneously, then there is a gap between that, and that defines the space. Space itself is not seen, but because of the gap, there is automatically inference that there is a space between the two, because 2 points I cannot observe simultaneously if they are on the same space, same place. So therefore, space itself is defined in that way. time itself, according to the Einstein, is observation of two sequential observations. Therefore, according to him, observation 1, observation 2, and the gap between the two sequence, not simultaneous, two sequential observations defines a time. So time itself I cannot perceive, I need now, and I need something else to compare with the now then, so that I have two sequential events, and that defines the time. Now that I am perceiving, and the moment back before I perceived, and with respect to past and the present, they are defining a time. So the time itself comes from the mind. Because mind has to come in terms of bringing the past memory and the present together is what defines the time itself. I cannot perceive the time directly, I cannot perceive the space also. In fact, I told you also, I cannot perceive even the light also directly. I can only perceive the light when it gets reflected by an object. If there is no reflection, I cannot see. So if I look at on a full moon night and see the moon, what I am seeing is sunlight reflected by the moon. If there is no moon there, even though there is a sunlight there, I will not be able to see, because beyond the moon I don't see any light there, even though sunlight is there also. So I need a medium to a reflection for me to recognize the presence of the sunlight, and the same way I need some object to reflect, to recognize the presence of the light, even though light is there. The object is not creating the light. Moon doesn't create a light because it's not a luminous body. Yet moon is shining only because the sunlight is getting reflected, because there is sunlight falling there. And without the moon present, I won't be able to see the sunlight. So all that is light also I cannot perceive directly, and also time and space also. So all that is implied in the process. So when I go to waking state, to a dream state and a deep sleep state, when the deep sleep state, the whole mind along with the senses, everything is folded, and therefore I have no concept of time and space also. So in the Einsteinian definition, this definition is the time is two sequential observations, but Vedanta says it is two sequential experiences. Because when you say observation, there is an observer, a conscious entity has to be there. He doesn't change with the event. He has to be standing apart, look at event 1 and event 2 for him to know the gap between the two. So an observer is independent of the observations, that means the sequential events, and he has to stand apart. He is the conscious entity observing independently. We call it observation 1, experience 1, observation 2, experience 2, and the gap between the two is called a time. In the case of deep sleep state, we have only one experience, constant memory of only that I don't know, I am asleep or I am in the sleep. There is absence of both, the subject object duality is absent, and that is the only experience of the absence of subject and object, and that's what is the deep sleep state is. In the deep sleep state, which we'll analyze later exhaustively in the Vikachudamani, in that stage, no concept of time and no concept of space also, but I am there, because when I say I slept very well. So all that desa kala vastu parichinnatvam is not there unless there is a perception of simultaneous events or sequential events. So in everything, when I am perceiving, I am this body, mind, intellect, I am different from that. Therefore, I want to expand myself, therefore karma comes into picture, and therefore our action only can be done in the present. And what is the present? Present is, if you look deeply, present is where past is meeting future, and the gap between the past, where the meeting point is what is called a present. So how big should be the present? Oh, this year, this day, this hour, and this minute, this second, and we can keep dividing, and this microsecond or a picosecond, you can keep on dividing so-called now, but ultimately we have no way of knowing what the now is. But what is there only is the one who is dividing. An observer only is beyond the space and time itself, and that's what is the essence of Vedanta trying to point out. I am beyond all that, because I am even conscious of the space and time, and they are also objects of my knowledge. I am the knowing principle beyond everything else, and therefore they have no desa kala vastu parichinnatvam is not there, and that means no limitations by time, space, and all that. We'll discuss this a little bit more about karma in the next talk. We'll stop here. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vasishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Sri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om. And Mama?